Well, welcome everyone for this session. And to begin, I just want to introduce this wonderful panel here. And to begin, I'm going to actually introduce Shashi in the middle here first. I'm going to call him the practitioner. Shashi Mandapaty, he's the former CPO at J&J. And some of you recognize him because he's a former center stage speaker last fall at Amsterdam. We also have the thought leader, Elouise Epstein, Kearney partner, digital procurement futurist, and I like to say someone that's no stranger to DPW. Yep. And then we also have the investor, Sean Jacobsohn, Northwest partner, venture investor in cloud AI, B2B marketplaces, including AI procurement technology. Great. So let's dive in. And the first thing I want to explore is that this whole idea is like, why are we even sitting here having a conversation about rewiring the procurement playbook? Right? There's so many things that are going on, but the question that I want to explore to begin with is a question about, is procurement truly ripe for disruption? And not just disruption, but for significant disruption. Mm-hmm. And if so, why and why now? Now, I know you're chuckling because I know your perspective, but Sean, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Procurement leaders today are re-architecting their businesses for AI. I think over the next 5 years, they think that they can get 80% more productive with 80% fewer people. They realize that they can dramatically increase productivity of their employees by leveraging AI, and instead of the default answer to BPO it, now you can agenticize it.
All right, Elouise, I know you're waiting, you're on the edge of your seat. Your perspective.
So if you're not a procurement practitioner, you can cover your ears. But this moment, this AI moment is going to obliterate legal, finance, HR, IT. All those jobs, those 80% are going to go away. In procurement, I think 80% of the tactical drudge work that we do, everything from category strategy to running sourcing events to chasing POs, that all goes away, and I say please and thank you. Because what that'll allow us to do is real procurement work that we've been talking about for 25 years and that we haven't actually tackled. So I think that will open up an opportunity for procurement.
And it's so true. I mean, we've been talking about, to your point, for ages, how much tactical work do we have? How much strategic? How do we free up? Everybody says, well, I could be more strategic if I didn't have all this tactical work to be done. Practitioner's point of view.
So, I don't want to be the spoil sport here, I know. But look, is there an opportunity for reframing procurement? The answer is absolutely yes. Right? There are many things that procurement can take advantage of with these new technologies. But I'll also say that there are a few important bottlenecks that as procurement organizations we need to overcome to take advantage of these promise that both of you have talked. I would say that the top three, is that there is a significant legacy lock-in. So there's a legacy workflows, there is legacy technologies, legacy systems that need to be overcome, right? I think that's number one. Yeah. And by the way, the business case for many of the generative AI products is not 100% clear. It's because of which that overcoming the legacy lock-in is also not that easy. The second is the insecurity. So the way I describe it is it's my confidential data. It could be patient information that goes on a blind date with a mysterious model that is hosted on some hyperscaler. I mean, it's a reason for any CIO or a CPO to be exercising caution, right? So that's the second piece. I think the third, perhaps the most important, is the disconnect. The disconnect in terms of people, and the disconnect in terms of data, right? So the data that all these models have been built with the best of the information that is available outside. But then if you look at, as every speaker who has come on stage has said, the data that is inside our organizations that is important is in a really bad shape. And I would say that it's the CPOs who are to be blamed for it, so including me. But that's the reality. So those are the three reasons why I think the promise is very significant, but we need to overcome those, particularly the data aspect, before we can get the best out of these new technologies.
Yeah, and you've highlighted some, very important, what I'll call enablers, data and people, and both of those have to be along this journey, to enable it to be successful. Yeah. I'll just say going forward. But let me turn the conversation to AI transformation.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we're seeing here, this entire conference is focused on, is sort of this idea of, transformation driven by AI. And we're talking about how disruptive it's going to be. But what I want to understand is, how would you compare this to past transformations that we've gone through in procurement? You can go back 20 years, and we were talking about e-procurement, et cetera. How is it different? And Sashi, I'm going to stay with you, because one of the things you just mentioned was this, this pull in the organization. Things that are pulling us towards doing it, things that are pushing us back.
Yeah. So look, I know I talked about the things that are like the bear case, okay, for generative AI or for AI in general. There's a huge bull case, and I'm not oblivious to that. I think the bull case is the fact that I think the kind of synaptic brilliance Elouise demonstrated it this morning that generative AI can bring to procurement is unparalleled. Okay, the personalization, that's another aspect that it's an N of one. The ability to hyper personalize the procurement offering, unbelievably powerful for the function.
Yeah.
It's an ever-evolving technology. So all the generative AI that we are seeing today is only going to get better. So everything that I said, which is that insecurity and all of that, will keep getting better. I think this whole hallucination, which was such a big problem 2 years back, it's still there, but it's less of a problem. Can easily be solved through better prompting and maybe good data with a RAG model, whatever, right? I mean, there are many ways to get rid of hallucination. So it's an ever-evolving. I think the expertise gets democratized with this new technology. So I could talk to a lawyer. If earlier it took an hour to discuss a contract, I could probably do that in 15 minutes now, because the rest of the homework has been done by a good system. So expertise is democratized, and then finally it's a dynamic. So it is not rule based; it's reasoning based, right? And I think that's the primary reason why I think it should be different. This transformation should be different from the workflow transformations that you talked about that we have done for the last 20 years. So whether it is e-sourcing or take a workflow and digitize it. So take the existing workflow and digitize it. And of course, you improve the workflow and then digitize it. That's different than what we are talking now. So think of it like the economic unit of economy in that case was the cost per transaction. Yeah. Here it's something like cost per intelligence kind of. So this is more of a reasoning-based thing. So if we are doing this transformation the way we have done transformations in the past, we are missing the boat. The reality here is that we will have to reimagine the processes. It's almost like ground up, and then put them all back together with this generative AI framework. And that's when we would say that we are truly using the power of generative AI. So my answer to your question would be, we are not doing that yet. We're largely, except for I think a few situations where orchestration is one example where there's a ground up view, but otherwise most of the approaches seem to be to digitize an existing work process, which will not take us very far.
Yeah. Elouise, your thoughts?
84% of digital transformations fail. And I put that at 100%, but we can only quantify 84%. So why do we think we can do AI transformations? I'm tired of transformations.
They're hard.
They don't work. And I've watched big companies spend millions, if not billions of dollars on transformations, and they come out the other side almost identical, or certainly procurement and supply chain groups do. So what are we doing? Why are we doing that? And so I like to reframe it as I did this morning. focus on the individuals, because all of us should be responsible for our own journeys in the AI realm. We do need roadmap. We need new roadmaps. We need new strategies. We need new education. But I am loath to call it a transformation.
Yeah, yeah.
And I apologize for being negative on that one. That was my turn to be negative.
Yeah. Well, that's where we're up here. We got perspectives, and we want to share those. But let me, switch to what this whole session is all about. And it's rewiring the procurement playbook. And what I want to do is walk through some of the dimensions of a procurement organization. One is you can look at the operating model. There's a lot of different dimensions to that. And what I want to do is walk through each one of those dimensions and ask you for a perspective. How do you see that being rewired as we look forward as part of this AI journey? Let's start with vision. If we're going to create a capability, we have to have a vision. And so, Elouise, how is the vision of procurement going to be rewired?
Well, I think I start at the I talk about starting with the op model. Every op model out there today is focused on the people we have. If you have 100 people, you can plot them to the op model. But what's the ratio between humans to agents? And if everybody has 20 agents, 100 people now becomes 2,000 agents. So the CPOs, their job is to determine what that ratio is, and then what all those people and what all those agents are going to do. And so that, to me, is the work. There's no answer for that. I can't give you an answer. I don't think any CPO can give you an answer today. And so that's the work to be done, and I think in that is the vision. What do you want a procurement organization? Is it a procurement organization of 5 people with 100 agents?
Yeah.
Or that's remained, I think that's different for every organization.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things you see sometimes is just, perspectives in terms of what you want that organization to deliver. Yeah. Some folks have said, you know what, I want going forward, I want to be able to create a competitive differentiation for the company. We've been saving money, et cetera. But Sean, I know you have some perspectives on the organization as well. What are your perspectives in terms of, I'll just say, structure, somewhat that Elouise alluded to, even size of the organization? What's your perspectives on that?
As I was mentioning before, I think that the size of the organizations can go down quite a bit. Like over the next 5 years, I think the organizations can be 80% smaller. I also think that there's going to be less dependence on IT. I'm finding it's table stakes for entrepreneurs to sell software where there's an AI component, and I encourage corporations to do experimentation in regions and geographies to be able to get their teams up to speed on AI and also building their own agents.
So let me switch to culture. Shashi, how's the culture going to change?
So I think the culture that should dominate, and this will probably also link up to the vision that you mentioned, is procurement embracing a business first, embedded in business, indispensable for business kind of an orientation. And I'll actually maybe build on the topic of organization a little bit, right? I mean, look, as procurement organizations, me included, we built our careers on efficiency, right? So we basically said that, look, let me standardize whatever I can standardize. If there are 5 business units that I'm supporting, I am a shared service. And I'm using the word shared service in a very broad sense, not necessarily a global services kind of thing, but procurement is a shared service, like many other functions.
Yeah.
So I take everything that the business wants to do and put them in some neat channels, which I call standardized channels, and then I say I'll drive the heck out of efficiency for these through these channels.
Yeah.
What has that done to the organization? You have a business, you have an R&D leader who wants to buy something, and they would then reach out to a business leader, business procurement person, who then reaches out to, typically there would be a shared service, which would be a even bigger level of automation and even level of efficiency, who then reaches out to a low-cost location. There would be a setup in a low-cost location, which would then do the event whatever is the event that is needed to be done, and then we finally select a supplier who then works with that R&D leader. Just look at the seams that got created in this effort to standardize and drive efficiency. I think the message that you shared this morning, Elouise, about how personalization and efficiency need not be, this technology allows us, or this way of looking at, actually it's not just the technology again, this way of imagining the processes and our work gives us the opportunity to personalize without compromising on efficiency. So from a structure point of view, in future, you could have a business leader with a small procurement team embedded in the business with a few procurement people reporting into that and a number of agents or number of digital workers reporting into that individual. And that individual is then working with the business and driving whatever is needed to be driven, right? So it's very different from the multiple seams, shared services kind of a structure that we have today. And this may happen not tomorrow, but over the next 3 years, 5 years, whatever. I know Elouise will say it should happen tomorrow, but I think
that happened. No, Well, let me switch to talent and skills. And I know you have a lot of perspectives in terms of generational perspectives, et cetera. But what about rewiring the skills, the knowledge, et cetera, of that procurement professional, those people that are operating in this environment?
So I have my philosophy is there's a bus going to the future, and everybody in the organization gets a ticket to get on the bus. Now, not everybody's going to get on the bus. And some people get on the bus and halfway through they get off the bus. That's okay. But that bus is going to the future. And as leaders, you need to be sitting at the front of that bus and demonstrating that this is important. And all of the skills that we teach procurement, AI is obliterating. It does those. Think about category management, supplier relationship management, negotiations training. AI can do that much better than I can. So why am I being trained on that? Which means, parenthetically, you can take your procurement academies. I give you permission to throw them in the trash. Because, first of all, people don't learn from learning management systems. But second, and more importantly, is those skills, AI is not something you can learn from an online module or some pathway or toolkit. You have to do it. That's why so much of my work is teaching people how to do this, or just go do it. Like, whatever you do, just do it. And so I think it's incumbent upon leaders to get ahead of this and to demonstrate this, because if they lead by example, that'll create room for the rest of the organization.
Absolutely. You gotta set a perspective, a path to where we're all headed. Sean, what about performance metrics? Do you see those being rewired as we look forward in this environment?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest performance metrics is around speed. Speed to getting things done, speed to making decisions. And because of this new world, I'm seeing different pricing. So instead of putting bodies at every problem and charging people based on seats, and since you have fewer seats, a lot of the pricing now I'm seeing in the AI world is around outcomes or tasks or actions.
So let me pivot. I wanted to talk about the rewiring, and you each shared some perspectives at different dimensions within the organization itself. But I want to focus on something that, and get your perspectives, is blind spots. We're all sitting out there, we got a lot of procurement leaders, and as we're looking out over the next 3 years or so, 5 years, what are we not thinking about that we should be thinking about in this AI journey? Elouise?
Two things, cost and complexity, because one of the pieces of feedback I have gotten from my spider chart and from a lot of the work is there's too much technology. So we have, part of the biggest problem is too much complexity. We have the lock-ins, and then we've got all this innovation. Well, guess what happens when 100 people create 20 agents each? I for sure guarantee you that we're going to have a complexity problem. I'm not saying AI is perfect. I'm not saying we're going to solve that, but for sure you can be sure that there's going to be agentic chaos, no doubt. But the other thing is costs. And again, OpenAI, Anthropic, and Gemini, or Google, they're not doing this out of the goodness of their heart. They're going to come up with pricing models that are going to make us all blush. But it's going to force the lock-in providers, the legacy providers, it's going to, I think, push them to the side, if not eliminate them.
Yeah, in some ways you're saying we're going to push the complexity of dealing with all of the professional humans in our environment to agents.
Yeah.
We're going to deal with another complexity. Sean, your perspectives, what is a blind spot?
Yeah. Well, I think there's still a lot of fear out there about leveraging AI, building agents, and I think it's people are worried about having high quality data, access to data, security, the capabilities of our teams, and so I do recommend, as I mentioned before, just to experiment, get the ball rolling, get smarter before you do full rollouts across your organization.
Shashi?
So blind spots, I think Elouise called out an important one, which is that there is a cost. There's a cost to tokenization which needs to be considered before we jump into this. But I'll speak more from the procurement organization perspective. I think there are two big blind spots. One is I think most CPOs think that they're more digitally. Their digital strategies are more advanced than what really they are, right? I think that's one. Yeah. Because I think we've done a good job of assembling applications, but I think there are big gaps, particularly from a data perspective, right? As I mentioned earlier, I think that's blind spot number one. Blind spot number two is the talent, right? We have procurement talent that is business focused, but also has 60 to 70%. This is just my estimate. It could be different. I mean, there's no science behind it. I have folks from MIT and Harvard in the group. This is just my guesstimate, that 60 to 70% of the cognitive overload that procurement people deal with today is lots of nothing to do with business, is just getting stuff done, in the procurement organization. With technologies that are on display here, I'm assuming that cognitive overload will go away, and so the 60 to 70% of the extra capacity that procurement professionals get should get invested in curiosity, asking the questions about the business, creative solutions for the business, which means there has to be a far greater understanding of the business than what it is today, right, in the procurement organization. Yeah. I think so the two blind spots, I would say, is that we think our digital strategy is better than what it really is. And second, our talent needs to be more business oriented, because that's where they'll need to flow in this new world.
Yeah, I didn't hear any of you mention vision. Do you feel, and I'm going to ask you because you're a CPO, with all these things going on, with the speed by which everything is changing, can we truly paint a picture of the future?
Do we truly? Sorry.
Can we truly paint a picture of the future with the speed, how everything is going on? There's technology. I mean, I made a comment earlier. I mean, we were here last year. I only heard a few people talk about agentic AI. Today, everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
What are we going to be talking about next year that we're not even thinking about? So how do we paint that picture?
No, I think my view is what I started off with earlier, which is that the procurement playbook, the discussion that we were having today, I think that should go away. That should go away. Every organization starts off with divvying up work, assigning it to people, and then reassembling it for the patient or whoever is the customer, right? That's where procurement should go back to now, is that this is the job that I need to accomplish as a procurement function. How do I divvy it up and distribute it amongst people, amongst agents, amongst whatever, and then how do I assemble it back, right? So our conventional playbook is largely a reference material, that's it, beyond. I don't think it has much of a value beyond that. And then I think once you do that, and once we deal with those barriers that I talked about, and by the way, in those barriers, the legacy lock-in, it's over time, it will go away. Insecurity also will go away. I think it's once we deal with that, I think the vision is that it would be an organization that is a combination of digital workers and people deeply connected into the business.
Okay, last question, Elouise. Do you sense a level of hype today as we're thinking about AI? And if so, why?
What's the next big technology? I think in Silicon Valley, sort of, Sean and I live there, we're always looking for the next big thing, the next disruption, pushing, and because there's money to be made. And so what that leads to is the hype machine. We just crank up the hype machine. That's how we ended up with RFID as the next big thing, or actually Y2K as the crisis, then RFID and IoT and blockchain, and we can go down the line of overhyped technologies. However, I think AI is clearly permeated our lives. So I think that it's hyped because of the promise of cash out at the end. But also we have to acknowledge it is real, and it is now accessible in ways that it's just like the internet. The internet was private to the military and universities, and then it became public and it went bonkers. AI is going through that same evolution, I would argue.
So I'm going to say it's a hype, but it's a good hype and is driving us to where we need to go.
I would, mostly good hype.
Mostly agree. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you to the panelists. Appreciate all of the insights that you shared. And with that, it's a wrap.
Thank you.